Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Wytpod, where we meet, talk, and learn from some amazing people, learn more about their journey. I'm your host Sam, and today I'm thrilled to announce a guest whose insights are sure to leave you inspired. Today's guest is Hannah, a master brewer and founder of Kombucha Kamp. She's built an e-commerce company that provides high-quality kombucha tree. So I'd request you to please check it out at kombuchakamp.com. That's camp with a K, and you will find some amazing products there for sure. So throughout our conversation, as you all know, we'll explore and uncover insights and perspectives from Hannah about the business, about the challenges that she faced, and how she has built this successful business. So without further ado, let's welcome her to the show. Hannah, welcome to Wytpod. I'd like you to please introduce yourself to our audience and also share a little bit about your business.
Thanks, Sam. Happy to be here. I am Hannah Ruhamah, the Kombucha Mama, mother to mazillions of microbes around the world, some of which might be inside of you, maybe not you, but some people, and for that I'm eternally grateful. Just to break it down, kombucha, if you've never heard the word, it is simply fermented tea. So cabbage is when we ferment it, becomes sauerkraut. Grapes, when we ferment them, become wine. And tea and sugar, when we ferment them with a SCOBY, that's symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. That's our mother culture. So when we put that into our pot of sweet tea, give it 7 days, that turns into this delightful, tangy, refreshing beverage called kombucha. And it has loads of great health benefits that we can talk about a little bit later. But I feel like kombucha found me. So a lot of people, if you've heard of it or you've not heard of it, it's an unusual beverage, and it's typically something people come to when they've been struggling with specific types of health issues, and they've tried all kinds of things and nothing's working. They find kombucha, and lo and behold, kombucha often has a quick way of helping people just feel good, improve digestion, and give them more energy. So I wasn't actually looking for kombucha, but a friend of mine from college happened to be brewing it in his home. So when I went to visit him, we got this great tour of his apartment in San Francisco, and one of the stops was this jar, and in the jar was all this weird oogly googly stuff, and he goes, "That's the kombucha." I never heard of it. I didn't taste it, but when I came back to Los Angeles and went to Whole Foods, lo and behold, there were shelves and upon shelves of kombucha. So I had to try it for myself. I grabbed my bottle, I opened it right there in the store, and I took my first sip. And before I tell you my experience, tell me yours, Sam. Have you ever tried kombucha?
Oh, no, I haven't. But, looking at the website, going through all the stuff, it made me try it. I actually want to try it. So, yeah, I might.
Well, and see that, like you, I had never heard of it. I never tried it. And so I didn't know what to expect. So when I took that first sip, the heavens opened up, the angels were singing, the lights were shining, and that's because I was sad. Standard American diet. So this was in the early 2000s. I was not too far out of college, wasn't a great chef, still eating a lot of microwave or boxed foods, canned stuff. And so I didn't get a lot of enzymes, nutrients in a living form. And when that kombucha first entered my system, my body was like, yes, I need this. Now, these days, kombuchas on the market can have a wide range of flavor profiles, but at that time, it was definitely very tangy, very sour punch. And I loved that flavor a lot because, truthfully, when I was younger, I would sneak the pickle juice out of the pickle jar. And my mom would always yell at me, "Don't do that. It's so bad for you." But I think my body really was craving those nutrients that the pickle was providing. And so once I found kombucha, what happened is my thirst outgrew my budget. So yes, you can go to the store, you can go to your local farmer's market, you can find kombucha in many, many places these days. In the grocery store, it's in the produce section. So I highly encourage everybody to go out and buy a bottle of kombucha, give it a try. If you don't like that flavor, try a different brand. It really is a complex, sophisticated beverage, just like craft beer or wine or any of the finer things in life that have an acquired taste. But if you're like me and you find that, oh my gosh, I'm buying it and now that's becoming an expensive habit, it really is so easy to make at home, and you can make it for pennies a glass. So my thirst outgrew my budget. I went to my local library. I checked out every book they had, and I just started making it at home, and I loved it. And my husband had been taking a nightly antacid pill. He was also having a daily, Gatorade energy drink. And his body wasn't responding well to those inputs. He had gained weight, he wasn't feeling good, and he every night had to take this pill so that his stomach wouldn't bother him. Well, after 2 weeks of enjoying the kombucha, he found he could let go of that nightly pill. He shifted away from those sugary, chemically beverages and started to lose weight over time. It's not immediate, it is a gradual process, but he, to this day, continues to love his pink lemonade, which is the flavor I made for him. And we both consume kombucha on a regular basis. And it just, like I said, it helps with digestion, it boosts your energy, and it supports a healthy liver. So that makes it a really great cocktail mixer and or hangover cure, or substitute for people who are avoiding alcohol. Because of those delicious, sophisticated profiles, it looks beautiful in a wine glass and can replace your alcohol beverage altogether if that's something that you're into.
Yeah, probably this is more reason for me to give it a shot, I think. Yeah, that's one of the whys I have. So I think, if it helps solve that, yeah, all about it. But yeah, I basically was not a whole lot aware about this product per se, but the more I read about it yesterday and a little bit today, I got into it a little bit more, the whole fermenting process, the brewing. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how does that whole thing works, about the different flavor profiles, how you as, somebody who's in this industry, a veteran at this, would start, and how that whole process looks like of brewing and fermenting kombucha.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I'd seen my friend's mysterious jar, and in that jar was a SCOBY. I'll say it again, symbiotic cultured bacteria and yeast. And it looks like a white rubber pancake. It has these little brown strands hanging off of it. That's the yeast. And so basically, it's a culture where bacteria and yeast, which are microbes from different aspects of the tree of life, have learned how to work in harmony together to create this really wonderful, healthy beverage. And so the fermentation process is super simple. If you can brew a cup of tea, you can make kombucha. It really is that simple. So what do you need to brew tea? Well, you need some hot water. You need some tea. And by tea, we do mean Camellia sinensis. So all tea comes from that same plant. How you process that plant when you pick it is how we get those variations of black tea, green tea, white tea. What's your favorite tea, Sam?
It's just chamomile. That's the flavor I like. Have a cup before sleeping. That's like once or probably twice a week. Not a big fan. I have like 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day, so not much room left for tea.
That's the interesting thing, because tea is actually the most popular beverage in the world besides water. Now, here in the United States, of course, coffee, being New Worlders, we have to be different. We had that whole Boston Tea Party thing. But tea has been, wars are fought over tea, right? Tea has been one of these incredibly medicinal and powerful plant medicines, herbal medicines that people take on a regular basis. Now, you mentioned chamomile tea, which is actually not tea at all. And so that's what I mean when I say tea is Camellia sinensis. Chamomile tea is actually the chamomile flowers that we infuse in water. And like you said, it has very calming properties. It helps us to sleep. And it's one of the things we like to infuse into the kombucha to give it that lovely flavor as well. So the reason it needs tea is because there's specific elements in tea, L-theanine, which is the type of caffeine in tea. It's very different from coffee. So instead of getting that high and then that low, L-theanine gives you this focused energy that is more consistent. And so you don't experience those extreme differences in energy. It also is high in antioxidants. It's known to have anti-cancer properties, helps with weight loss. So tea just in and of itself is a healthy beverage. Now, when we add the fermentation process to it, and so fermentation is, refrigerators are 150 years old, 200 years old. We grew up with them because we're not that old. And so we've always had a refrigerator, but our ancestors did not. And so how did they preserve food? How did they ensure that they had nutrients they could survive on in the coldest of winters when nothing was growing? How would they ensure that this milk they just freshly milked would last them to, 2 weeks later? They would make cheese, right? So fermentation is this process where microbes, living organisms, are added to a substrate, in this case, tea and sugar. And through their consumption of some of those ingredients, they create acids. So they lower the pH, which then creates a negative or hostile environment for other molds and pathogens, which are weak by their nature, right? And we know they're weak because if they weren't, we'd all be dead, right?
Right.
So we know that pathogens have to be weak, and these acids, this low pH and the organic acids they produce, they create this healthy environment that allows the kombucha to thrive without being invaded from foreign organisms. And so then when we go to drink the kombucha, we receive the benefit. So fermentation often enhances the nutrient profile. So in kombucha, we're going to have B vitamins, vitamin C, again, high in antioxidants and polyphenols, which are really great for scavenging those free radicals. It helps reduce oxidative stress in the body. You know, we're always in this balance between putting things in our body that can potentially harm us and things we're putting in our body that help us. And we also receive, we're constantly absorbing pollution from the air, from the water, from, various chemicals they're putting into our beauty products and things like that. And so for those of us who are health focused, we're always reading the labels and how can I
Right.
eliminate some of
Yeah.
these chemicals from my diet altogether, but we can't get rid of everything. And that's where kombucha is really helpful because gluconic and glucuronic acids, which are naturally made in the liver, bond to toxic molecules, and once the bond is created, it can't be broken. So like a bouncer, they walk these xenobiotics out of the body. So that's, any drugs we might be taking, that's, coffee, it's any sort of thing that could potentially have a negative impact on our body that we're putting into it from the outside. And it eliminates them through hydrolysis, which is going pee. So we drink kombucha, we drink water, and that helps to literally flush our system. So imagine your whole digestive tract is like pipes, and the pipes get clogged. Well, that doesn't feel good, and things can't get through there, and now you're all backed up. Well, when you have something that's coming in and helping to flush those pipes, helping to flush and keep everything running clear, then you can imagine that you have more energy, you feel lighter, those digestive issues start to resolve themselves. And again, it could be anything from diarrhea to constipation. And the reason it works on that is it's not going after a symptom, it's going to a root cause. And so when we go to a root cause, that element can then help with all kinds of disparate symptoms because it is nourishing your gut at that microbial level.
Well, I never thought a drink could do so much, but yeah, it definitely seems it's detoxifying the body. So, to our listeners, is there any specific time of the day where they should consume it if they're planning on doing it? Like, have you seen that, or it doesn't matter?
I mean, really, you can consume it anytime, but what I like to recommend to folks who are new to kombucha is start with a small amount, 2 ounces, 4 ounces, so half a cup, first thing
Okay.
in the morning on an empty stomach. And the reason I suggest that is it allows you to start to feel how the kombucha is working in your body. Because I think what happens is we eat all this food that maybe isn't good for us. Then we have
Mm.
these negative outcomes and we feel terrible, but we don't connect the dots that it's related to what we're putting into our bodies. And so when we start to have more consciousness or more thought around, okay, what am I putting in my body? How does that then feel? And closing those feedback loops, that's when we start to be able to pay attention to all kinds of things that we might be putting into our bodies so that we can start to make better choices, right? We're
Mm.
never going to be able to make the best choice all the time. And in fact, people can get so hung up on it, they become what's called orthorexic and they have to follow all these rules. And that's not what we're saying. We're saying this is something that anybody can add to their diet. They can have it once a day, a couple times a day. It does help with digestion. So let's say you're having a heavy meal and you get sleepy afterwards. Well, having that kombucha is going to help to digest. You get that 3 o'clock slump, have a kombucha. You feel hungry, have a kombucha. And the reason is, well, why do we eat? I mean, we eat because it's fun. We eat because it tastes good, but we eat because we need nutrients. And so if we give ourselves a hit of B vitamins, some, tasty flavor profiles without all of those added chemicals and fake sugars, our body can instantly uptake and utilize those nutrients. So we're literally just giving it liquid life, if you will. It's life in a bottle. And so when we have some of that, it just helps us feel a lot better over time. And so how much should you drink is a question we get a lot. Like, can I drink
Right.
too much kombucha? And the short answer is sure, but your body's going to let you know. And how's it going to let you know? Well, you're going to be in the bathroom a lot more than you were expecting. And that's going to be a sign, okay, let's maybe dial back the amount we're consuming right now, increase our water consumption, and then add it back in as our body rebalances. But can you drink so much and harm yourself? Typically not. It's the same as like, how many blueberries should you eat? Right? How much
Okay. Yeah. I
salad
mean,
should you have? At a certain point,
Mhm.
your body's like, okay, I had enough. And that's
Yeah.
what I mean by closing those feedback loops. When your body starts to really be able to sense those things and you can connect it consciously, there really is a communication there that makes it easy to know, okay, am I having the right amount or not?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that totally makes sense because, too much of anything is also bad, but since it's all natural, no preservatives and no chemicals, I think it's still going to be okay, but you're probably going to know that it's too much for you now. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Now, in terms of, the product that you have, it sure seems to have a lot of health benefits, but I'm sure like for people like me who are not aware about these benefits, like now I'm talking to you, I'm learning about all of this stuff, and probably people who are going to listen to this later on are going to feel the same way. But for people who don't know this, and probably like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, there would have been a lot less awareness. So, for you, when you started this business, you had a good product, you knew you were doing good by giving people a healthy solution, but how did that how did that awareness come into play? Like, what struggles did you face in the initial days of starting this business? Because obviously there has to be an awareness, only then people are going to try it. Like, so how difficult was it to get the customers?
I mean, that's exactly what the issue was. And so it was really Kombucha Camp, Camp with a K, because we're cute and clever over here, started because I saw a lot of misinformation about a kombucha on the web. But you're right, right? What do they say? Riches and niches. So we very much are, in our niche and are a force in our niche. And that's an outgrowth of our mission of changing the world one gut at a time. And then also looking to our mother culture, which works in symbiosis. So we know we're not here to be the only ones with this message or this voice, but I feel like kombucha chose me, right? How do microbes speak? Well, how do we hear that, right? It's an internal relationship. And I feel like she chose me because I'm someone who became very passionate. I saw the tremendous opportunity that she provides, especially in this very toxic world we live in. And I also am, I care about people. I care about humanity. I care about this planet. And look, I don't know, what any individual is going to be able to do, but I know that if they feel good in their bodies and themselves, they're going to want to help their family. They're going to want to help their community. And it doesn't matter where they are on the political spectrum. I just know that people innately are good. And when they feel good, they want to put more good in the world. So
Right.
that to me is the primary force behind Kombucha Camp was education. I wanted to teach people about kombucha because you're right. So many people still have never even heard of what kombucha is. So you want to talk about challenges? That's the challenge. The
Absolutely.
next challenge is it's an acetic acid ferment like vinegar. And we are in a culture and society in most places around the world where vinegar isn't a flavor profile that most people are reaching for. When you reach for that soda, it's not so tangy. Even the lemon lime is very sweet. There's a lot of sugar or sugar-based elements in our diets. And so asking people to consume something that's a little bit different from what they're used to is also a challenge. And so, one of the ways we would connect with people is by going to events and giving them samples. And from an industry perspective, that's been really important for kombucha producers to be able to set up samples in a grocery store or to offer you samples at an event because it is experiential. When you have kombucha, even if that first sniff, you're like, oh, this is weird. I don't know if it's for me. The body knows, right? The body knows what's good for it. It knows that sour and bitter are the flavors of health and digestion. And they're not the only flavors we need to have. And we're also out of balance in our current diet. And so when the body starts to receive nutrients in a living form that it can instantly uptake and utilize, it's like, yes, I want more of that. And so tasting is right? Seeing is believing, tasting is believing in this case. Because when you start to have that experience and you start to see how your body responds to it, you're like, okay, let me incorporate more of this into my life. And in fact, I had never intended to be a SCOBY purveyor. It was never my plan to have a huge warehouse and sell all these products. I just wanted to teach people. But what happened is, because it was such a small industry, people started reaching out. Hey, do you have a SCOBY? Do you have a SCOBY? And because they are literally infinite abundance in action, they're also the principle of, if you give an organism what it needs to thrive, it will. And so by cultivating our cultures, we get extras. So we would send them out to people, they pay here and there. Well, we became the upset. So when we launched our online store, so it started with a blog, and I started teaching in 04 in my home. I started blogging about it in 07. And in 07, I would also I would reach out to every commercial producer I could find, because if they love kombucha, I love them. Because I love kombucha so much. And I loved anybody who felt passionate enough to put this weird thing out there and share it with people. So this relates to another part of the story. But and so we just started blogging and teaching people about it. Then they started asking for products. In 2010, my husband and I said, you know what, there's a real opportunity here. Let's pursue it. So we started putting, selling SCOBYs online. We launched an e-commerce store. We put tea in bags. Everything was, I hand drew all the labels. I signed every order. I put stickers on every box, because those were the things, those little touches, those little flourishes were things that I felt were really personal. And I continue to be so grateful to every customer. And in fact, we still do that, even if it's not my personal signature on those orders every time anymore. But it literally organically grew. It grew of its own accord, but it grew out of that passion and that desire and that mission of changing the world one gut at a time. And so that was 2010. In 2010, in our industry, from the commercial perspective, there was also a big incident that happened here in the United States. And what happened was, all the kombucha was removed from Whole Foods, because it turns out kombucha does also create trace amounts of alcohol. Now, it doesn't create enough that you can get drunk or feel intoxicated. Some people say they get a buzz, but oftentimes that's the B vitamins in living form. And honestly, I've had a little bit of that buzz, and first of all, it feels great. It doesn't last long, and it certainly doesn't impair your ability to drive a vehicle or to function. So it's not intoxicating. Moreover, the acids literally help you detox alcohol out of your body. So it's that little bit of alcohol that's acting as a medicinal carrier rather than as something to inebriate you. But our alcohol laws here in the United States are 100 years old, and they come from Prohibition, from a time when people were so crazy they tried to outlaw consuming all alcohol altogether, and from a Christian temperance perspective, which is all alcohol is bad. And so we have very strict laws in the United States compared to our cultural counterparts. So for example, in Canada, it's 1.1. In Mexico, it's 2%. In Europe, it's 1.2%. Here in the United States, it's 0.5%. It's a very low amount. And that's not based in science. It wasn't based in, right, as I said, it was based in an emotional, in a religious type of thought process. And so we have this product that's been selling, but now there's a label mismatch, right? And Whole Foods doesn't want to be liable for selling products that can have more than 0.5% alcohol that aren't then labeled properly. And so this created a huge kerfuffle in the commercial kombucha industry. And it planted a seed that we needed to try to start to organize, so we could, go after some of these, we could tackle some of these questions together as an industry. And again, kombucha chose me. I don't know why, but my passion and our mission of changing the world one gut at a time galvanized us into launching Kombucha Brewers International. So that's a trade association for kombucha that represents commercial kombucha around the world. And we've done so much great work in the last decade. And in fact, I just recently stepped down from my presidential role there to refocus back on Kombucha Kamp, because as you can imagine, running multiple businesses, tackling huge industry projects, advocating, lobbying Congress, initiating research to better understand our culture, all of that takes a lot of time. Not to mention, we wrote a book, The Big Book of Kombucha, which we can't see in the picture, so I'm going to bring it over here. But it's literally a big book. It's 400 pages. This was a decades of our life's work that we put into a book form. Now, I'm really proud of the book. It's sold over 400,000 copies. It's translated to 6 different languages. People call it the Bible. And really, it's just such a great foundational resource. So it really is this, physical manifestation of our passion. And so, sorry, that's my dog.
That's all right. We'll cut that out.
So the book right, has taught so many people how to brew kombucha. So whether you use a Kombucha Kamp SCOBY or not, this book is so foundational. Many people have started their business because they read our book. And then our work at the trade association has allowed us to continue to help people figure out how to make a business out of doing something they love and that they know helps to support their community as well. Now, here's the thing. In the interim, other people have come in. We've had more competition. So when we launched Kombucha Kamp, we were the low cost upstart. People were typically charging about $40 for a culture. We came in at $25. So that was fantastic. We sort of blew our competition out of the water. We also were very prolific in, generating a lot of content, which, as we know, the search engines really appreciate and like. Well, unfortunately, as we became more involved in the trade association, there was less content being generated once the book came out for our website. And we have subsequently, with all the changes to the algorithms and whatnot, we've lost a lot of our organic traffic. And organic traffic was our biggest driver. We didn't really do a lot of ad spend because it was, again, such a niche product and there was very little competition. We were able to do that. Now we're having to pivot. Now we're having to try different things because, as we know, we're in this new age of search engines and how they're highlighting content and not. But what this has done by being able to step away from the trade association, let the industry continue to manage its problems. I did what I wanted to do, which was to found it, to create a code of practice, to enshrine fermentation as a key component of kombucha, to really set them on that right path. Now I'm starting to put my love of the research, love of the information back out there. So we've had some really great human trials come out about kombucha. Right? Kombucha has this reputation. It's been called the tea of long life, the tea of immortality. Why? Right? Can we believe that? Is that all BS? Is that just, myths? Or is there a reality? Is there a truth to it? And so there have been numerous studies done on rats. They've been done on all kinds of animals. They've been done on inside of cells, looking at radiation in kombucha and cancer and different things. But now we're finally seeing this interest tip over into human trials, which, we're not a drug. We are a food. And human trials always, for some reason, carry a lot more weight in people's minds than just anecdotal evidence. Although truly, I believe the only reason we study something or put money behind it is because the phenomena already exists. It is already true that kombucha does these things. But now, finally, some money is being generated towards validating that through double-blind studies, which is exciting. And so what we've seen just last year, Georgetown did a study and they showed that type 2 diabetics who consume kombucha on a regular basis have lower fasting glucose rates. For years, I've heard from people, I can let go of some of my medication. I can, we've heard anecdotally, again, from my perspective, and I know this isn't the general held perspective, I think the anecdotal is actually more valid or valuable because we're never going to control everybody to eat the exact same things. We're never going to control the stress that every person has in their life. And so if we have something that helps people regardless of the types of food they're eating or the types of stress they're under, yet also experience a similar benefit, I think that honestly is more powerful than, okay, these people, this situation. So it's great to have both, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm excited to see more research come out about it because I think we're just going to see that a lot of what the anecdotal information has shared will end up being true. Now, is it true for everybody? Of course not. Every body is different. And that's why our motto is trust your gut. It's not trust my gut. It's not trust my experience. I'm not you. And so that's where teaching everybody to understand those feedback loops, to pay more attention to their own bodies, to really come back into our bodies and understand how they're operating. I think that is so important. And kombucha is just, I think of her as a gateway. Right? She's not an endpoint. It's not like drink kombucha, you're done. That is certainly not the case. It's drink kombucha. Now try these other fermented foods and drinks. Now you're open to other ways of like, how else can I listen to my body? Or what other changes can I make that's going to make my body feel better? So again, kombucha is never the end. She's just a beginning. And she's the journey of a million sips. You just have to take that first one.
I know. I absolutely relate with that because 2 points that you mentioned really make sense. One, everybody is different. And two, it also depends a lot on if somebody is consuming one product, just like the other person, but what those guys are dealing with in their day-to-day lives, what activities they're doing, what other foods they're consuming. that also has a lot to do. I mean, if I just take kombucha and, eat all junk food, probably the benefits are going to be much less. And yeah, that's totally right. But it's great to, know that there's now real research being put behind this. So I think, yeah, the industry will widen as far as I can say. I'm sure you can tell a little bit more about this, because you must have noticed this over the years. Like you said, most of your business was being generated through the organic search results. And since I run a marketing agency, I know about, how the Google algorithm works. And if, there's a huge audience searching for something, showing interest in one particular product, Google's going to pick up on that. So how have you seen that evolve over the years? And do you now, project that it's going to go even, wider? It's going to expand more with more competition coming in, more people getting aware about the product?
Well, so with more competition, that means everyone's competing for those search results. And
Right.
probably not everybody's relying solely on organic for that. And there may be some paid search. We're also seeing, Google favor AI, which is really just sort of scouring the web, pulling information so that you stay in Google instead of actually clicking over to websites. Now, I think many people are still, clicking on websites, but even myself lately, I'm like, I look for something, I get a quick answer. Okay, I don't need to look at a website. Google has just presented me the one quick answer I'm looking for, right? And so even as a user of search engines, I recognize that I'm not like, okay, let me look at 5 different websites and see what all this means. I'm like, okay, I got the answer I needed, so I'm going to leave it at that. And so that becomes the challenge, right? And we're not the low cost upstart anymore. There are people in, who aren't in California, who pay California taxes, California labor, who aren't necessarily organic certified, right? There's a lot of different things we do that adds to the cost of our bottom line. And so what this means is I've been pivoting our communication strategies. And, so trying to, of course, social media is just a content monster, right? It just wants more and more and more and more and more. Well, the good news is because I love what I do so much, it's easy for me to show up and share. And the other thing I had to realize, because, when you become an expert in something, sometimes, or like, here's a better example. You're a famous singer and everybody wants you to sing that one song. And you're like, but I have all these other songs that I also love to sing, but you all want to hear that one song. And so there can become this sort of like, well, I don't want to sing that song. And so I definitely had my own journey of like, I don't want to just teach people the basics, except when you realize there's so many people who don't even know what kombucha is. Like, you know what? That's exactly what I need to be teaching. I need to come back to the fundamentals. I need to keep helping people to even understand what kombucha is. And so I fell back in love with that part of it. And social media is such a fun place to do it because it's also come up in the culture. We have a video on TikTok that's had, 6 million views. And part of it was just a huge opportunity where a Nickelodeon show talked about a SCOBY, and our huge ginormous SCOBY showed up on TikTok right as everybody was searching for that, and we went viral. Did it lead to 6 million in sales? Of course not. But that's how social media works. But it's still raising that awareness and getting people excited about it. And so I think where the pivot is now is, what sets us apart from others? How is our product different? And really getting creative about how we communicate those points of differentiation. And it's not to say that other people's products are bad. I'm really not a person who feels I need to tear my competitors apart. I think we don't gain anything when we do that, because my attitude is there's not enough kombucha being consumed in the world, so we need all these voices. Because while one person might resonate with my voice, they might need to hear another person might need to hear a different voice for it to make sense for them. So I'm very much of the SCOBY mentality, if you will, where, we can all raise the collective together by working in harmony. And so that means figuring out different collaborations or working with other people who also love kombucha, and finding how those partnerships can work.
No, I think, yeah, that totally makes sense because, and you have, built a community. Like I was, when I went through your social media for your brand and your website itself, looking at some of the amazing stuff that people have to say. And obviously, you are an author of the big book. So, that has to have an impact. And yeah, it is kind of a community because, like you said, not many people are consuming kombucha right now. So obviously, it's a close-knit community, a very niche product, if I can say that. Okay, so I mean, I think I know more about kombucha now than I knew before meeting you. So thank you so much for that. But I want to also, and for our audience as well, because we asked all of our guests about what advice would they give to young people, somebody who's say 24 years old, looking to start out on their own, looking to start their own business. What advice would you have for them?
Pick things you love. I think right now with the current economic situation, it's probably not wise to invest in infrastructure,
Right.
into your own building your own store. That can be really challenging. And so, where can you collaborate? Where can you find people who have like ideas that want to share them and come together? And, sales has changed a lot. I'm not on Amazon direct selling yet. Right? There's so many ways, avenues I haven't tapped into because that just hasn't been my way of doing it. And so I think young people have an advantage in that they can jump into something. But I would say do something you love, because if you're just sitting here, promoting other people's products and you only sort of care about them, at the end of the day, you're not going to feel very fulfilled. And I think when you want to start a business, you don't just want the dollars to come in, you want it to fulfill a certain piece of your soul. And so if
Right.
you can find that passion and follow it and share that with other people, that's really important. And so that's what I tell people who are new to kombucha and they want to start their own kombucha business. And I tell them, first of all, it's a labor of love, emphasis on the labor. It's a very labor intensive project and process to get into manufacturing. And but it's nonstop, the type of new products. And I don't just mean kombucha, but you go to Expo West, which is it's a show in Anaheim with 80,000 people from all over the world with food products, everything you see at Whole Foods and beyond, showing up into this place, all with an idea, all with a niche, all with something to sell. And it's a really challenging game, and not everyone's going to win. And so
Right.
it's really think about what's your focus. What do you want to do? If you want to create this brand that then is going to sell out to a huge food corporation, you have to be ready to, get your investor deck and be constantly chasing money. It becomes less about, I love this product and how can I raise money and then sell this, to a bigger organization. And that's just a different thought process and frame of reference. If you're coming into it because I want to help the people and this product is amazing, stay small, stay local, really, drive your roots down deep, because that's going to support you. We saw this in the pandemic where we suddenly lost the opportunity to connect with people directly. And those who were able to pivot and reach out to their customers and say, hey, I still have this available for you, even through a non traditional route, they were able to sort of survive that process. But we saw supply chain issues rise and all kinds of things that really negatively impacted. And we're seeing it now in the cost of our food products here in the United States. The costs have just gone sky high. And, it's in response to all of these global shifts we saw. And so that's where it's like, be passionate, stay small, let it grow organically, and really let it be something, an expression of something you love in the world, because that I think is going to communicate to people more directly than if it's just another, generic blah in a bag or another, you know, whatever you might sell out there. And then be creative, have fun, be yourself, let your true personality show, because at the end of the day what we're seeing is as corporations have sort of lost, and look, they're still big, they're still making lots of money, they're not going away. And what we see is that people who are true to themselves, who put their personality out there, they're able to, people want authenticity. They want that
Right.
authentic relationship with you. And so if you can put an authentic version of yourself out there, people really resonate with that because they're sick of seeing the fake, fake, fake everywhere. So just be yourself and have fun and make sure you pick something you love to do. And it's okay to pivot and it's okay to change, as I tell my commercial consultation clients, because I help people start their own businesses and I offer
Oh, yeah.
consultation for that as well. For any type of entrepreneur, especially in the consumer goods space, but really anyone, because at the end of the day, your business is you when you're an entrepreneur. And that means if you're not caring for your energy, if you're not managing your time well, if you're trying to do every job and not outsourcing because it feels like you don't have money for that, you're not valuing yourself right. And what that means is you're going to get burnt out. The brand isn't going to succeed because you simply cannot be every person in your own business. And so, the quicker you realize you need to be in collaboration, whether that's because you're hiring employees or because you're partnering with someone, um, that I think is really going to help forward your growth, because at the end of the day, there's only one of you. And if that person's burnt out, spent, and has no energy, then neither will the business.
Well, that's some pretty solid advice, and I think it's practical advice as well, given the fact that you mentioned initially with the economy right now, it's not a good idea to invest into the infrastructure. I really like that point. And I think, yes, for somebody starting out, it should be something that they are really passionate about, or they should have a clear understanding why they're doing it. Like you said, if they're planning on selling it to a bigger corporation, so they should be clear about it. And that totally makes sense. And I think people who would listen to this will take that advice. I recommend it. It's a good one. Thank you so much for that. Um, it's been one of those conversations where I, for one, am coming out on the other end more informative about something, and it's not on a very regular basis that I am so inclined about learning certain stuff. That's really been helpful to me. So I'd like you to thank you for that. And thank you for being on our show today. It's been a wonderful conversation. Really got to know some amazing insights. I think people who listen to this will take some valuable key points from it as well. So thank you so much for being with us today, Hannah. It's been a pleasure having you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.